Hey guys, I'm Phoenix Gray, and this is LitRPG Happy Hour, where I sample LitRPG and alcoholic beverages. Feel free to drink along if you dare. Today I'm going to be reading a sample of Core Punk, Chronicles of the Core Book 1 by Bellow, and I'm going to be playing a drinking game along with it called Stumbler, where I will have to take a drink every time I mess up. If you want to follow along, pause this video and download a copy of the book sample at the link provided, or you can just take a drink whenever I do. As a disclaimer, I do not read every book that I drink to. This is all for fun and to help spread the word about LitRPG and these awesome books. Having said that, let's get started. So today I'm going to be drinking like this pre-made cocktail. The brand is On the Rocks. The cocktail is called the Aviation. I honestly have no idea what this is going to taste like. It's supposedly a gin drink, which I'm not a huge fan of, but I think I might actually try it before I stick it in the ice, just to kind of get a... it's not too bad. So I still haven't unpacked my glasses yet, so I'm pouring it into this styrofoam cup because I'm classy as fuck like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with the read. Oh, I clicked and scrolled. Alright, prologue. I kept my eyes closed against the intense virtual sun as I lounged in a bathing suit on the hotel rooftop. I'd made valedictorian, and that had earned me this mini vacation logged into the core. It wasn't the cheapest virtual platform, but my grades had come with a tidy stipend, and if I needed anything, I needed a break. So I already stumbled once. Oh, that tastes, it's kind of alcoholic. Anyway, a shadow fell over me, dramatically dimming the sunlight. Someone sitting here? A man's voice. I glanced up, shielding the sun from my eyes with my hand. The man appeared benign, though I couldn't tell you what it was, specifically, that gave me that impression. No, have a seat, I smiled as the stranger sat in the lounge next to mine. This place is amazing. Please be interested, I silently begged. I'd met far too many boring men in my life. His bright yellow trunks and ultramuscular body told me nothing about the real him. First visit, I'm guessing, he asked. How did you know? He smiled and gestured at my hand. You're clutching your cube. I glanced down at the black square of plastic in my palm. Yeah, a nifty device. I wished he would stop talking or leave. I'm new here too, he droned on. It's been a lot of fun so far. He held up his own cube, his personal version of the little core cubes that controlled everything around us in the virtual world. Would he leave me alone if I kept quiet? His awkward stare put me on edge. With so many virtual options available, why was he talking with me? Maybe I'll see you later tonight, I said. Would he get the hint? He nodded and stood. Looking forward to it, he said, then wandered away. As he left, I shifted my weight on the cushion. The pool had been calling me all afternoon, and a quick dip might wash away the residue of the awkward conversation. Or should I meet the others first? I smiled. Why not indulge my whimsical side? Modern life was so boring compared with the endless opportunities of virtual reality, but it was easy to get addicted. I stood and stretched, still unsure of my plans for the rest of the evening, when a flash in the corner of my eye signaled a change in the world around me. The virtual utopia that had surrounded me disappeared, replaced by a frozen wasteland. I pressed my core cube to exit the simulation, but the quick command button had disappeared. Why was this happening? It's so cold. Though the cold couldn't kill me like it could in real life, the simulated cold was just as compelling as the warmth of the sun on my face I'd experienced only moments earlier. I grabbed my thick cotton robe next to the rusty deck chair. As I sprinted toward the nearby door, seeking warmth, I put the robe on. While thick, it did little to block the cold. The door leading into the building had been torn off its hinges. I gave it little thought as I rushed through the doorway, seeking warmth. Where is everyone else? I bounded downstairs in search of a help desk or someone to explain what had happened. There were no porters, receptionists, or bellhops on the first floor. Instead, a ragged crowd of people wearing furs huddled in a trashed lobby that hadn't been cleaned in years. A few hard faces looked up from around a fire burning in a rusted metal barrel. I waved a hand as I slowed my pace. Stop! A man with a wicked-looking machete stepped forward. I noticed a familiar pair of yellow swim trunks covering his head. He brandished the long, rusty blade as others huddled behind him, their teeth bared like hyenas stalking prey. A whiff of their foul odor reached my nose, and I stepped back. I'd met my share of role-playing purists, but these folks were taking it entirely too far. Why do the crazies always find me? I scanned the wide-open room in search of someone in charge, anyone really, to fix the quit option on my core cube. The cube, it wasn't in my hand any longer. Did I leave it on the roof? And how am I still seeing my heads-up display? I dug in both pockets of the robe, looking for my core cube as the others warily watched me. What are all these new game menus? My heart beat faster. You, I said, pointing at the man in furs wearing grungy yellow swim trunks on his head. Don't you remember me? Before this happened, you were hitting on me. She's a bloody corpunk. Their leader wore a curious look. What you doing above ground, doll? You must be awfully cold in that silly suit of yours. Crowded behind him, the others laughed, egging him on. Look, guys, I'm glad you're having fun, but I'm freezing, and I just want to get out of here. Are you saying you don't remember me? You want out of here? The man huffed. The cold to take you before you get 10 steps outside. Come over here by the fire. Very funny, I groused. Just tell me how to... A vicious whine filled the air as a vicious bolt of orange fire flew past me and splattered against the wall near the burning barrel. Run, the man in fur shouted, still shaking his machete. The group scattered in 10 different directions, but I ignored them, instead facing the shooters. Maybe they had answers. I raised my hands in surrender and hoped they wouldn't fire on me. The gunmen approached, fire-spitting rifles pointing at me. What's your name? One demanded. Why are you dressed in that jumpsuit? You'll freeze. My name's Scout. These are the only clothes I have on me. Please, I need help. The man's face was impossible to read behind his helmet. I tried another tack. How do we end the simulation? This isn't funny. Where's Eden, my virtual paradise? I'll sue this corporation so hard. The man pulled off his helmet, shaking free his long, greasy blonde hair. I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm Harrison, he said. You're welcome to come back to Shelter 12 with us. We'll find work for you. Sure, I muttered, lowering my arms. Nothing about the simulation, huh? His eyes narrowed as he studied me. Eden, a world in the core? I prompted. You know, the stupid simulation. I want out. Are you lightheaded? Harrison's face became concerned. Has anything bitten you recently? No! I frantically poked the air around me in several directions. This is all simulation. None of this is real. She's crazy, boss, another man said, his deep voice somewhat muffled by his helmet. He kept looking around, weapon raised. Are you coming with us or not? Harrison asked. I don't know what the weather's like in Fantasyland, but it's warm back at the barracks. I'm not trying to trick you. This is a gracious offer. I sighed, defeated by this second group of role-playing dorks. I was hungry and needed to pee, and the biting cold had numbed my toes. Once I took care of my immediate problems, I could look further into what had happened to Eden and why nobody remembered we were in a realistic simulation. I didn't expect it to take too long. Boy, was I wrong. Chapter 1. 3 months later. Warning. Shelter under attack. Warning. Mutants detected. Flashing lights and sirens continued to blare despite the notifications in our heads-up display. I glanced down at Missy clinging to my arm as we ran down a long, gray metallic hall. A burly man with long blonde hair and carrying enough firepower to take out an entire shelter on his own stood up ahead. He turned to us as we approached. Why aren't you in your barracks, Scout? Harrison barked. Missy got scared and ran to hide, I yelled over the sirens. How's it looking? Is this the big one? A dozen mutants got in through the air vents, he said. Those damn things will kill us one of these days. Yeah, but we're dead either way, I muttered. Get to the barracks, he said, peering over my shoulder. Now! A trio of mutants lumbered down the hallway behind me, leaving a trail of mucus behind them. Missy clutched my arm even tighter. I sighed, then hurried down the corridor back to our bunks. Harrison followed us through, sealing the steel hatch behind him. The hissing whine of plasma rifles and nightmare screams followed us as we continued down yet another long gray hall towards our living quarters. Wait! Harrison shouted, lifting a clenched fist. I peered past him and saw a three-headed monstrosity heading our way. Get behind me, Harrison said, lifting his rifle. I'm going to drink, so I almost said headed instead of heading. Without a ranged weapon, I wasn't about to argue. Harrison fired several rounds, orange plasma bolts piercing the creature's chest. It screamed and rushed forward at an unholy speed only seen in nightmares. Missy cried out as it slammed into Harrison, all three heads attempting to bite his head. He dropped his plasma rifle as he fought to keep the mutant at bay. I rushed forward, then did a barrel roll, hoping Missy stayed put. When I stopped near the plasma rifle, I grabbed and raised it, leveling the barrel toward the mutant. Fire! Harrison screamed. I gently pulled the trigger. The recoil pushed me back as the plasma bolt hit him in the thigh. Hey, watch it! Sorry, I shouted, then aimed the weapon again. The mutant, unable to bite off Harrison's head, leaped over him and scurried toward Missy. Oh, no, you don't, I muttered as I fired off 3 rounds in quick succession. All 3 orange bolts of pure energy plowed in the mutant's back, throwing it to the floor. Before I could finish it, Missy screamed like a primal savage and pounced forward, a blade in each of her hands. I ran toward her as she repeatedly buried her blades in the mutant's body. A notification window popped up before I reached her. Combat is over. You get 100 life experience points. You have 2,050 LXP. You are now level 2, plus 15 skill points, plus 5 health, plus 5 stat points. I waved the notifications away as Harrison walked over. You two got lucky, he said, grabbing his rifle from me. I know, I glanced at Missy and frowned. She lowered her head, looking at her feet. Taller than me, her behavior didn't match her appearance. I felt sorry for her and tried to protect her as much as possible, but she made it difficult. She pulled a string from a seam in her shirt. Don't do that, I said, swatting her hand. What's her problem anyway? Harrison asked. Leave her alone. Everyone stuck in this crazy simulation should be helping each other. Harrison groaned. Don't get started with your crazy talk. Missy giggled and cleaned off the blades of her knives. I'll be right back, Harrison said. Stay here. He raised his plasma rifle and crept down the hallway. As I waited for him to return and escort us to our barracks, I thought about my larger predicament. Over the last few months, ever since the simulation changed and everyone lost their memory, I'd concentrated on making it one day at a time. I needed to change that if I wanted to protect Missy and myself. Switching from a luxury holiday simulator to a post-apocalyptic frozen wasteland had been bad enough, but few people even remembered what had happened, and nobody believed those of us who remembered the past. They've overrun the gardens, Harrison said as he returned. We'll take the long way around. Stay close. We can make it on our own, I said. We'll be fine. No, your engineering skills are too important for the shelter. Come on. He motioned for us to follow with his free hand before marching down the hall, turning left at the first opportunity. Missy clung to my arm as we walked. With everything that had happened to her, I understood her fear. A scouting party had found her wandering the wilderness not long after everything had changed. We'd been close to each other ever since she arrived. As we walked, I realized I needed to work my way up the chain of command. More power would give me more opportunities to figure out what had happened. I'd spent the last few months trying to adapt to and survive my new surroundings. Hold on, Harrison said, stopping at another closed hatch. I glanced behind us as he peered through the tiny window. Okay, all clear, he said, opening it. The hatch opened with a pneumatic whoosh, and Missy hugged me tighter. Come on, he said, no dawdling. He didn't need to tell me twice. Just like Missy looked to me for protection, I sought comfort and protection from Harrison, even if he didn't realize it. We continued down one long hallway after another, arriving at the cramped barracks where Missy and I stayed. Harrison, plasma rifle still in his hand, stopped and glanced down the hall both ways. You two stay locked up, Harrison said. We have the mutants confined to the first floor. Everything will be okay by morning. Thanks for getting us here safely, I said, glancing up at him. He ignored me, walking back down the hall while holding his weapon. Missy let go as I watched him retreat down the hallway. We're home, she said, smiling. I reached out and brushed her hair out of her eyes. Home sweet home, I said sarcastically, then punched in the code to open the hatch. I think I stuttered on sarcastically. Said it wrong. As it slid open, the smell of 24 women living in a space meant for maybe half that number hit me. Missy scampered inside, heading for the bunk we shared in the back. Before she even made it halfway across the room, Becky and her goons blocked the narrow aisle, standing in her way. After 3 months stuck in the stupidest survival game ever devised, I'd had enough. The close call with the mutants meant I needed to work harder at climbing the chain of command in the shelter. Move, Missy demanded. You'd better learn some respect, Becky shot back. I grabbed Missy's shoulder and pulled her behind me. Why don't you pick on someone your own size? I said. My rival for dominance in the barracks furrowed her brow. You two better watch out, she said. Or what, are you going to kill us with your bad breath? A few of her followers giggled. Becky's face flashed red. Take that back, she demanded. I pulled a thin silver dagger from my belt. Or what? Becky scowled, but backed down and moved out of our way. That's what I thought, I said. Clear the aisle. Missy stuck her tongue out as we passed the other women. When we reached our bunk, she climbed up the ladder right away, crawling across the bed to check on the stuffed sock she treated like a baby. Becky hadn't stolen it for weeks. I climbed onto the top bunk after her, sitting with my long legs dangling over the side. Heidi, our bunk neighbor, peeked her head out and looked up. I think I stuttered. I'm not sure when I was going to take a drink. This is actually pretty good, by the way. We heard the sirens, she said. Did anyone die? I regarded the frizzy-haired woman a moment. Probably, I said. Harrison brought us back. Ooh, Heidi said. Several women walked over and joined her. What happened with Harrison? Heidi asked, rubbing her hands together. I took a deep breath, instantly regretting it. There's not much to tell, I paused, except for the kiss. I smiled mischievously. Hushed whispers of amazement and amusement swept through the room. Missy glanced at me, knowing it was a lie, but saying nothing. The other women stopped laughing as Becky walked down the aisle between the 2 rows of bunks crowded into the room. Here's a better idea. She stopped and crossed her arms over her chest. Why don't you tell us your crazy ideas about reality? That dumb story you always tell. We haven't heard your crazy story in a while. Are you tired of people thinking you're a piece of shit liar or something? 5 of her followers stood behind her. She was baiting me, but maybe it was good to remind the women there was something else we all needed to worry about. I would get in trouble for talking about it if someone ratted me out, but I knew all the women in our barracks would never tell on me, especially Becky. We hated each other, but we both knew we needed each other to survive the harsh reality of the shelter. Gather round, I said, motioning with my right hand. I don't enjoy telling this story, but after all the craziness today, I need to share. I paused, waiting for everyone to quit talking. Everyone quiet, Heidi hissed. I glanced from her to the other women, all of them hanging on my every word. This isn't the real world, I began, observing the other women's reactions. We're not meant to have numbers controlling our lives. None of this is real. I remember the real world before everything changed in a flash. We were all together in a virtual world when something happened and everyone except a few people lost their memories of the real world. You're full of it, Becky snickered. Laughter followed. Nothing new. They couldn't affect me. Not anymore. I tossed my head to get my greasy black hair out of my face before continuing. People hate me for remembering, but I can't help it. I wish I could forget. Tell us a story, Heidi said, rubbing her hands together. I frowned. Orlando had warned me about telling the tale. He ran our shelter with an iron fist. Without any entertainment, the other women had come to rely on my stories for escape. Do it, Missy begged. She latched onto my arm and pulling. Okay, settle down, I said, then took a deep breath. Most of you only remember the life we're living now, but several months ago something happened. Eden changed in an instant. I don't know if the same thing happened to the rest of the world to the core, but I'm trapped in here. We're all trapped in here. Tell us about the core, Heidi said, rubbing her hands together. Yeah, tell us, Missy pleaded. I'll tell you what I can remember. After so many weeks in here, some of my memories are hazy, but some of it I'll never forget. You're lying, Becky said. I ignored her and continued. This world isn't real. All the text in the air isn't normal. There's another world where everything's different. People of that world became bored, so they built the core, virtual worlds where they could escape. This world is one of them. Why would they build a world as miserable as this one instead of making it a paradise? Becky interrupted. Several of our bunkmates laughed along with her. The core wasn't always a wasteland, I said. Something happened. I don't know the specifics of what happened, but something crazy happened. The virtual world called Eden I had entered by getting into a virtual reality pod went from utopia to dystopia in a split second. We're all stuck here. A hush fell over the crowd as they became enraptured by my words. One day, everything froze and this horrible world we live in appeared. Nobody knew what caused it. You're full of shit, Becky yelled, followed by more laughter. Like anyone believes you, I snapped back. Everyone remembers how you told us you and Harrison were an item. We fooled around, she insisted, standing. Her followers did the same. After turning, they walked toward the other end of the room. Continue, Missy said. Please and thank you. I smiled. Her mind had been fried somehow after the happening, as I called it. Everyone who believed this world was real called it the Great Freeze. Few others in our shelter claimed to remember life before the happening, but we were in a minority. We kept everything to ourselves because Orlando forbade any talk of a better life. Excuse me. The real world had no notifications. Numbers didn't rule us, I continued. We built a virtual fantasy world to occupy our time because robots produced everything we needed. My life was perfect until everything changed in a flash. Even worse, few people remembered the truth. They all thought this wasteland is reality. My voice trailed off as the immensity of the statement hit me. Why didn't more people remember the truth about our situation? Had I gone insane at some point inside the simulation? Was what I called the real world just a dream? Had I turned my dreams about Eden into a false memory? Tell us about the food, Heidi said, breaking me out of my thoughts. Oh, the food, I cooed, smiling. We had everything you could ever want prepared a million different ways. The robots cooked anything you wanted. Fancy full-course meals or simple tasty snacks. And the pies? Heidi asked, then licked her lips. We had all kinds of pies, I smiled. Fruit pies, meat pies, nut pies, and everyone had more than enough. In fact, many people got fat. I stuck out my stomach and waved my hands to give them an idea. That's crazy, Heidi exclaimed. We had so little joy in our lives. My hazy memories of a life out of our reach entertained a lot of the women. The penalties for talking about a world beyond ours were harsh. I didn't like to talk about it too often, which made it even more special when I did. Missy tugged on my arm. Taking a drink because I almost said was instead of were. It's harsh. That's enough for tonight, I said. Missy and a few other women groaned. Besides, it's almost time for lights out. As the words came out of my mouth, the long LED lights in the ceiling darkened one after another. Missy yawned as the other women wandered off to their own bunks in the darkness. It's time for sleep, I said, turning to her. Nighty-night, she replied without protest. As we lay down next to one another, I struggled to recall more memories of the real world. Without remembering, I'd never be able to figure out what the hell happened. The game didn't have character classes, only skills, which I liked. When my virtual vacation switched into a game, I'd been randomly assigned stats and skills. Over the last 3 months, I'd gradually collected life experience points. After studying them for so long, I had come up with a plan to improve my life inside the game. I pulled up my character sheet to assign my points and put my plan into action. Citizen number 1134533312, name Scout, age 26 years, level 2, LXP 2050, health 15, psionics none, brain 82%, brawn 72%, agility 87%, perception 70%, guile 75%. Both stats and skills worked on a simple 1 to 800. When you went beyond 100%, you reached superhuman ability levels. On the flip side, the game penalized you for low stats or skills. Stat 10 through 40, below average, modifier -10. 41 through 70, average, modifier 0. Stat 71 through 80, above average, modifier +5. Stat 81 through 90, exceptional. Modifier +10. Stat 91 through 95, extraordinary. Modifier +15. Stat 96 through 100, legendary. Modifier +20. Stat 100 plus, super. Modifier +25 plus. So I'm going to take a drink because I didn't say stat on one of those, which I should have because it makes it easier when you're listening to me if you're not reading along. Behind the scenes, the massive quantum computer running the simulation generated a random number between 1 and 100 to see if you succeeded or failed. A person's stats modified the base chance. I still couldn't wrap my mind around how we had free will in such a world, but I didn't dwell on it too much. I pulled up my skills to see how to distribute my 15 points. Skills: mechanical repair 72%, electrical repair 65%, plasma pistols 40%, plasma rifles 40%, blades 84%, stealth 87%, gymnastics 24%, unarmed combat 54%, sense of direction 74%, smooth talking 80%, foraging 89%, tracking 63%, leadership 20%, general combat tactics 74%, general combat strategy 74%. I would have put everything into psionics if the game let me, but apparently only certain people infected by mutants had psionic abilities. After not running into anyone in Shelter 12 with psionic abilities, I'd started to think whoever was behind the stupid game put it there as a goal that could never be achieved. Unable to become a psionicist, I put 10 points into mechanical repair and the other 5 in leadership. With mechanical repair, I hope to become valuable in keeping the shelter running smoothly. That is 2 I screwed up on. Unlike the real world, you didn't need to train skills to improve them. Every time you leveled up, you could choose the skills to improve and could automatically do things better. The game still didn't make complete sense after 3 months stuck inside it, but I had been learning to roll with the flow. My plan to improve my standing in Shelter 12 wouldn't come easy, but I was ready to try. After 3 months of hoping things would work out, it was time to act. Dropping points into leadership wouldn't make sense to some, but I wanted it high enough to assume control of my own shelter if the situation ever arose. Becoming a master at mechanical repair was all well and fine for the short term, but I wanted more. I put my stat points into brawn, which would increase the amount of health I gained next level. The extra toughness would help if I needed to protect Missy or myself. Life for core punks wasn't easy. While I wasn't spectacular in any single area, my broad range of skills and spread of statistics had helped to keep me alive. After assigning my points, I closed my eyes. Before drifting off to sleep, the hatch of the barracks burst open. Bright fluorescent lights from the hallway flooded the room as I sat up. The smell of shoe leather and hair gel hit my nose. Ugh, what now? Chapter 2. Orlando strolled in behind two heavily armed guards. His black mohawk spiked several inches above his scarred scalp. The leather mask covering his face didn't conceal his ugly character. "Everyone awake," a guard shouted. "We need volunteers." I think I might have said shadowed instead of shouted. I shook Macy's arm. "Wake up, baby girl." "2 more minutes," she groaned, rolling over onto her other side, away from me. "No, get up," I insisted. "We're in danger." She stirred next to me, then sat up, her legs dangling over the edge of the bed. I sat next to her, watching as Orlando strolled in with his sharp, pointy mohawk and leather mask covering the front of his face. He'd lost most of his nose to frostbite before I arrived. As the man in charge of the entire shelter, his word was law. The lights of the room stayed off as he waddled down the aisle between the 2 rows of bunks. Was he coming to add to his collection of wives? I used the word lightly. "Everyone up," he yelled, clapping his hands and slurring his words. "We need volunteers." I took a deep breath, trying to control my anger. My hatred for the man ran so deep. He treated all the people in Shelter 12 like garbage. He made a habit of coming in late at night, though usually for volunteers of a different kind than he wanted now. "Nobody?" he asked, almost falling over. "Come on now, ladies. It's an honor to serve." As I sat up, ready to speak, Missy grabbed my arm. "Don't do it," she whispered. "It's not worth it." For all her problems, she made sense sometimes, but I couldn't sit quiet. Maybe if you treated us better, we'd be more willing to help," I said. "Who said that?" Orlando demanded. "Speak up." "Me," I said, hopping down to the floor. "Why can't you leave us alone? We already slave for you hours each day. This is our area. Why can't you leave us in peace?" I stepped into the aisle between the rows of bunks. The surrounding women sat quietly, none daring to move or make a sound. "Come here, woman," Orlando said. I crossed my arms over my chest. "No." He laughed, his pockmarked head shaking. "Get her," he pointed in my direction. 2 guards struggled to get around him, causing a few women to laugh. "Quiet," he hissed, shaking a fist. As the 2 guards got closer, I lowered my arms and crouched in a defensive position. They wielded clubs and wore tough leather armor, but I wasn't about to go down without a fight. When the first man got close enough, I kicked him between the legs with enough force that his armor didn't matter. He screamed, grabbing his nuts as he melted to the floor in a heap. "Stop her, now!" Orlando shouted. The other guard stepped forward, his grimy, gloved hands reaching for me. I stepped onto the bunk across from mine and pulled myself to the top. The guard looked up as I leaped from one mattress to the next, heading for the door. Some women cheered me on as best they could without incurring the wrath of Orlando. Near the exit, I hopped down, glancing behind me. Would Missy be okay? "I've got her!" Becky yelled as she grabbed me around the waist. While pounding her back, I struggled to free myself. She held on tight as 2 guards reached us. As they grabbed me, an inhuman scream caught my attention. I turned as Missy rushed down the aisle, slicing a couple guards in Orlando while racing toward me. The guards forgot about me and stepped towards their boss. That's 2. "Don't kill them," Orlando screamed as he clutched the wound on his stocky arm. Missy dove to the floor, scooting under 3 beds before popping up behind Becky and me. She grinned psychotically, then plunged a knife into my captor's arm. The barracks bully let me go and grabbed the wound as Missy pulled out the blade. I grabbed Missy's hand and turned to bolt for the door, dragging her along. 2 enforcers stepped in the way, blocking our escape. I stopped, not ready to die. All I needed was a few scouts to get me some information, Orlando said behind us. "I don't understand why you'd want to kill me when I keep you safe." He stopped near the door, taking up almost the entire aisle, trapped between enforcers and a fool with too much power in his hands. What to do? "But no, you couldn't complete a simple task for me," he continued. "Some mutants got away, and we need to know if they're hiding on the lower levels. All you needed to do was hunt them up so the enforcers could do their job. Why couldn't you do that, ladies?" I clenched my fingers around my dagger as I stared at him. "No," he said, shaking his head and wagging a finger. "Put the knives down, both of you." "Put it down, Missy. Do it for me." "Not until you put yours down," she said, glancing toward the door. "We can't win this fight," I said. We'll do what Orlando wants, and this is over, right?" I stared into our drunken leader's eyes. He grinned, showing the wide gap between his two center teeth. I hated everything about him, but not enough to die. Even though I knew our entire existence was a virtual world, I wasn't 100% sure what happened when we died in the simulation. Right? I repeated. No, Missy shouted, surprising me. She darted forward, knife raised. Orlando stumbled backward, tripping and falling. Before Missy reached him, two blue beams shot past me, striking her in the back. She screamed, dropping the knife, and fell to the floor, sliding a few feet toward Orlando. He kicked at her head while struggling to sit up. I dropped the knife. Leave her alone! Hands raised, I stepped toward them. Stop! An enforcer yelled behind me. I kept going, wanting to make sure Missy was still alive. Had they used too big of a stun charge on her? They'd been known to do that, and worse. I felt two beams hit me in the back. Pain shot through my body as I fell flat on my face, the gritty cement scratching my skin. I kept shaking, unable to control myself. You die, Missy cried nearby. Another two beams hit me. I blacked out. My last thought about Missy, hoping they didn't kill her. Even if it was a fake-ass world, I couldn't survive in it without her. I needed her as much as she needed me. We became a deadly team when working together. Then again, maybe we'd both get lucky, die, and wake up in the real world I'd imagined for so long. So this was interesting. I liked it. So far it's very girl power centric, which I kind of like. It's not something that I'm accustomed to in LitRPG, but it's been done very well, and I find it interesting, and I'm very curious to see where this goes. This is a new release, by the way. I think it was released in the past week. Again, this is Core Punk by Paul Bellow. If you found this read or this reading that I did intriguing, go ahead and download it at the link. Right now it's $2.99, and it's the beginning of a series, so hopefully there are going to be a lot more books after this. Anyway, I hope you guys have a good day, a good night, a good week, a good weekend, whatever time it is that you're watching this, and I will talk to you later.